Hey everybody, I just want to take this opportunity, make a quick video and talk to you a little bit about writing a position paper for the online philosophy class. Position papers are something that we're going to be doing from now on till basically the end of the course, and I thought it'd be great if we all got on the same page, so to speak. So here we go. First thing about a position paper is if you have any experience writing a thesis, it's kind of like the same thing but light. A thesis light, if you like. So what you're asked to do is to take a position, to broadcast an opinion about something. And the good news is, in this class, you're given guidance as to the nature of what that position should be. So unlike a thesis essay that you may have written, say, in a history class, that you have to research and come out of the thin air, this one is a lot more scripted. So, all of the position papers are going to have these things in them, in this order. An introduction, which basically gives you, like the word introduction suggests, an idea of what you're talking about, background of the subject, a summary of what it is you're talking about, and then your thesis or position. I'll use that term, position. Counter-arguments to show the depth of your understanding are you're taking into account what people who don't agree with you might say. Evidence to support your position, 3 pieces of evidence for each paper, and then finally a conclusion to put a bow on it and make it a finished piece of writing. The introduction has got to do a couple of things. It's got to get introduce what it is that you're talking about and get the reader's attention by using a hook. Now, a hook is not so much a requirement as it is a habit of good writing. It's basically saying something that's a little bit enticing or controversial in order to make the person that's reading your paper want to continue reading it right till the end. Providing background on the subject is like writing a summary, a very brief summary. And then at the very end of that first introductory section, you are going to say what it is that you think. You're going to assert your thesis, make your position clear in the space of 1 sentence at the end. This whole thing might take, I don't know, a paragraph or 2 between, I would say, 5 and 12 sentences, something like that. I think people have the hardest time with this part when they're just learning how to write a position paper. If you think of your position paper like a debate, and in any debate, it's best to go in knowing what your opponent's going to say. So if you say it's black, you know that your opponent's going to say it's white. If you say you agree with Descartes, you know that people are going to say that they don't agree with Descartes. So what you're asked to do is consider the counterclaims, summarize them, provide supporting information, because the counterclaims are not necessarily crazy. They usually have a logical basis as well. So show that you've considered them respectfully, and then say why they don't make sense, why you don't agree with them. And make sure that you, as in all things, your opinion is great, but you have to support that opinion with evidence. So make sure that you do that. The next part of the position paper are your 3 pieces of evidence. So for each one of those things, you're going to say what your piece of evidence is, you're going to say why you believe it, you're going to provide the evidence for why you believe it, you're going to say why that's good evidence, and then you're going to write a concluding sentence. Again, this thing, 4, 5, 6 sentences in that range. And then, so evidence, piece of evidence 1, 2, 3. 3 separate paragraphs, 3 different pieces of evidence. That's in effect the body of your position paper. And then finally the conclusion. You're basically saying, this is what I have told you. You are summarizing your thesis or your position. You're saying why you believe it. This is very important. C, no new information. All of the evidence that you have given in your debate, in your argument, has in the body. No new evidence in the conclusion. That would only serve to confuse the reader. In the Descartes position paper in particular, you're asked to include recommendations as to how he could improve his meditations, and this is the section that those recommendations would go in. Okay, let me talk a little bit about the specific position papers that you have to do for the meditation or the metaphysics unit. The metaphysics unit is a big unit, it's a fairly long unit, and you have to write 2 position papers. The first one is based on Descartes' meditations. If you haven't watched my videos, you should go and do that now, because I talk a little bit about the background of that, and especially I talk about his cogito, his famous cogito. You're asked to read his first and second meditations, which are basically what he uses to arrive at his cogito. So, this is what the course content is asking you to do. You are to provide a summary of that, and then your opinion as to whether his argument is sound. As it says in the course material, cite back to the primary source, which are Descartes' meditations. I should say that I'm going to provide you not only with a template for writing a position paper, but I'll also provide you with the primary source, which is Descartes' meditations. And then at the very end, like I just said, a recommendation for improvement to the author. Seeing as how Descartes wrote this in Latin, and it was translated into French, and it was several hundred years ago, I'm sure that you're going to have ample recommendations for him now, in the modern era. The next position paper that you have to write is based on Plato's allegory of the cave. Remember all that stuff we did on Plato, Aristotle, and the theory of forms? Again, you should check out my videos. If you haven't seen them, it's valuable background. You're asked to read the allegory of the cave and then discuss what are the types of knowledge that are found in them, how are they limited. So Plato's allegory of the cave in a nutshell is basically a story that talks about how Plato thinks human understanding is. So he's using this kind of bleak story about people being trapped in a cave to show really how ignorant people are of the true nature of wisdom and reality. So, but what are the limitations to his argument? And then finally, focus on and explain one connection to your everyday life. There's a great example in the course content where a person writes a thesis or a position that's based on their school, their experience in high school. Check it out. Some final thoughts for this. I just want to finish off with some final thoughts. There are a few rules to live by, I think, when you're writing position papers, and I think you should give serious consideration to these, because I know whenever I give assignments like this, people don't follow them, and it usually doesn't go that well for them. So here they are. The first one is follow the format. Following the format is absolutely crucial, because the format helps guide your language. It keeps you on track. If you don't follow the format, you end up straying out into the wilderness, and the wilderness is full of irrelevancy and rambling and stuff like that. It's not about length necessary when you're writing position paper. It's about clear, reasoned, concise argument, and the format is your friend in that case. So make sure that if you have questions about it, ask, and make sure you follow the format. The next thing is have it proofread. For some reason, a lot of people don't seem to want to go to this step, but I guarantee you that it's going to improve your mark. I don't know if you've seen those commercials where people talk about being nose blind to things. Well, when you spend a lot of time writing something, like you will in writing these position papers, you get kind of position paper blind to them. You know what's going on in your head, and your brain compensates for what you're reading on the page. Give them to somebody. They don't have to be a philosophy expert, and they will look at it, and they'll tell you where the spelling and punctuation mistakes are, and if it makes any sense to them. If they read it and say, oh my God, I had no idea about this thing with Descartes, well then you're on the right track. But if they read it and they say, I don't even have a beginning understanding of what you're talking about, well then you probably need to reflect on that and go back and make some major edits. Next thing is read the primary source. The internet is a beautiful thing, my friends, and it's got lots of summaries, it's got lots of resources about both Descartes' Meditations and the Allegory of the Cave. Both of those things are, cornerstones of Western philosophy. There's a lot of stuff out there. Go read the summaries, read the criticisms of them, but then also read the primary source. Actively read the primary source. And what I mean by that is get a highlighter and a pencil, sit down with it, highlight the areas that you think are important, make little notes if you have questions, and then go back to it. I said here, maybe not all at once, because if you're like me, the Descartes Meditations is, it's fairly long. I would say sit down with it for a half an hour, go away, do something good, go for a bike ride, walk the dog, whatever, watch something on TV, and then come back and read it again. Don't necessarily try to go through it all in one go, because by the third page you're going to be thinking about something completely else. And you need to focus your attention on that. You need to read the primary sources because you need to refer to the primary sources. And even though the summaries might be great, for example, there is in Descartes' Meditations a famous argument about wax. And if you haven't read it, it's going to be very hard for you to cite it. As in all things in this course, if you have any questions or concerns, please get in touch with me. Always happy to help out, and good luck.